gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you a keynote. And when I went out, because as I said, maximum occupancy conferences, there's no paid presentations or anything like that. What I try and do is have a look at what the industry needs to learn in the market. That's why we're totally independent. And the Chinese travellers are coming back. So I went out there and thought, okay, who can really tell us about where the Chinese travellers are back? And I'd like to invite on stage Kevin Liu, the head of Oceania from Trip.com. Trip.com has got 400 million members, and they're all waiting to travel. What's the size of Australia? So, I mean, that's amazing statistics. Please welcome Kevin Liu from Trip.com, who's going to talk to us. The Chinese travellers are back, how to get them to book with you. Please welcome Kevin. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin from Trip.com, and I've got some interesting data to show you today. Well, first of all, I wanted to acknowledge that the Gadigal people of the Aurora Nation are the rightful owners of the land that we're meeting on today, and I'd also like to pay my respect to both the elders, past and present. Do I just press the green? There's a big green button here which I should press. So this morning, as I was frantically preparing the presentation for this particular event, I had a little problem because I accidentally upgraded my computer. And so out of all the franticness as I was preparing for this, I almost didn't make it. And with all the technology problem that we have seen last week, I'm pretty sure that all of you can relate with the industry that we're working in because it's very technology centric. And this is why, as Trip.com, we are well, there you go. There's a picture of myself trying to struggle to fix my computer this morning. But as Trip.com goes, we are one of the largest OTA and travel agents in Asia, and also being a platform across the board for all of the flights, as well as transportation, and some of the brands that you probably know of, such as Ctrip, as well as Trip.com. Can I just get see of hands of anyone's working with us at the moment? Fantastic, there's actually quite a few of you. So hopefully in the end of it, all of you will be able to put your hand up. And so as you can see, we have businesses across the world, especially with some of the strategic partnerships, such as Make My Trip, as well as TripAdvisor, and also have a big ownership of Skyscanner, which is our meta search for flights as well. So that means we can bring you data for today, not only on the accommodation side of things, but also give you some of the insights that we're seeing from flights as well. So, looking at the flights, and these are some of the information I think will be quite relevant, based on the research on UNWO, is that we can see globally for Q1 of the global recovery, we're seeing that the Middle East is leading the way when it comes to the recovery for global travel, because they were the first one out of the lockdown. And then followed by Africa, Europe, as well as Americas, they're well above 100%. And then, of course, you can see APAC. This is the place where we are based. We're still sitting at about low 80%, but as of today, we're probably slightly higher than what we are right now. And so we're here to talk about China, and of course, China is such a big tourism market for anywhere in the world, and that's the country that everyone's looking towards to. So for the major contributions towards the road to recovery, so China, as you can see from a flight perspective, is right now contributing quite significantly. So in comparison for flight seat capacity, we're sitting at about 68% from 2019. And then also what I wanted to share with you with some of the data around the flights is that the expectation around the recovery for flights is about 80%. However, if you look at Trip.com for our contribution overall, we're well above 80%. We're well above 90%. And just to give you some perspective in terms of the travel between the between the Chinese New Year and the May festival holiday, that's the two major travel period within China. You can see that the light coloured yellow is the previous year, which is the 2019, and then followed by the dark orange, which is the 2024. So that gives you a bit of insight to see that as of right now, there is a return of interest in terms of travel for folks to be able to come back, especially during the golden weeks, as well as the holidays. Now, if you see on the far side, which is the top flights in terms of search destinations, you can see that, of course, Japan, Thailand, and also South Korea, these are the traditional markets that's always been there for the China market. However, what's interesting is that you can see that Australia is sitting up there, and what's considered for that is that we're the only long-haul market that's out of the China portfolio from a Trip.com perspective that has returned quite significantly this year as well. Now, I've been talking quite a lot about the global, so I wanted to narrow it down to just Australia. So as you can see from a short-term visit, and this is the data that I pulled from ABS, so thanks to Tourism Australia, as you can see, for overall short-term return in terms of Australia is that we're still a little bit behind, and that's for everyone. And so for the top returning markets, as you can see, is that, of course, the Kiwis. Of course, I don't think that's more of an international travel, right? But then you got more of the China market. Don't forget, back in 2019, China is the biggest inbound market. And so it's on its way coming back. And surprisingly, Singapore is ranked third as well. And so let's look at the flight coming back. And this is data from Trip.com, and so all the way up until the first half of the year. And this is across Australia. So you can see that there is a slightly upwards trend, or there's an upward trajectory of what the data is looking like from a flight search capacity-wise as well. So this is Australia, as you can see by the start of the year, that there's a big uproar when it comes to flight capacity. And then now if we looked at just Sydney itself, is that we're sitting at about 95% seat capacity because that there is major airlines such as the Sichuan airline, as well as added capacity by China Easterns, and also quite a few national carriers are returning into the Sydney. So then that does give us more capacity, and therefore, hopefully we'll be able to reduce the price as well in the long run. What about Melbourne? So if you look at Melbourne as well, is that you had a healthy number of seats return. However, the overall trajectory is still going up as well. And so by the end of the year for the two major capital cities, we're looking to have a healthy 90+% when it comes to the flight capacity return as well. And so if we combine all of them, which is something that you can see in this chart here, is that the overall, based on the last couple of months, is that we're seeing a very good upward trajectory. However, there's still some room to grow when it comes to seat capacity as well. Okay, so not only looking at flights, Trip.com is a one-stop shop when it comes to booking flights, accommodation, as well as visas, which is what a lot of the folks in China are doing. So in order for them to be able to come to Australia, we're also taking care of their visa as well. So that then gives us some good data, which I'm sharing with you here as well, some of the perspective of what's going on. So as you can see with the visa application before the lockdown, that is in the January of 2024, we can see that there is a roughly about 70% application of visa before 2019. However, since the lockdown have finished, you can see the number has jumped quite significantly into about 1,000% increase. However, that sort of petered out because we know that number cannot be sustained. But then if you look at the number for the rest of the this year, is that it's now above the 2019's data. And so the sign of that, it's a good sign because so when I ran the data, we're still missing some of the January data. So I'm sure that when we do run it again in a couple of months' time, we'll be able to tell a different story. So I know I was talking to a few of you guys and you wanted to know what's the departure cities as well as where is the arrival cities. And so some of the data I wanted to share with you is that, as you can see, out of the major capital cities, which is the Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou, they account for half of the inbound, right? And this is data based on the inbound flights that we're seeing. And then, of course, you got the next couple, such as Hangzhou, Chengdu, as well as Nanjing, make up about 25% of them. So these are the second tier, as we call it. However, some of the places are growing in terms of numbers of spending habits as well, which is a great place to keep an eye on, especially with some of the upcomings like Chengdu as well, where the spending habits are looking to spend a bit more. And of course, arrival cities. Now, combined just Sydney and Melbourne alone, you're looking at about 80% capacity. And of course, this is what we're seeing from a flight search. And of course, if you've got Perth, Melbourne, and Adelaide, that makes up the rest of it, as well as Canberra. Let's not forget there already. And so now, I know I've shared quite a lot about the flights as well as visa, because that then gives you an idea of where the passengers are coming from. I wanted to share with you some of the travel habits, and so that does give you some insights around the hotel side of things. But first thing first, as I was talking quite a lot about the way that the China markets are travel, we can see that during the Chinese New Year, which is one of the spike, or if not the biggest spike when it comes to travel, we have a global outbound of the top 10 destination from China. Does anyone want to take a real quick guess of the countries that will appear on the board? Anyone? Thailand? Okay, good. Anyone else? Singapore? Okay, good. One more? Japan? Great. Okay, so now I know some of you have been looking at the slides before, which is great, because you can see we heard Japan, we heard Thailand, as well as Singapore, which is just coming up as well now. And also, what you will be interested to know as well is Australia is on this list again. And so this just goes to show that as of this year, that the travel demand for the Chinese travelers is that not only they're looking at short-term or short hauls, but they are also looking at longer destinations, which that desire to travel. And so having to see that data, which is always a good way to see, the demands are coming back. And then I wanted to share with you some of the different looks of what type of people travel, or the purpose of travel. So we do collect that as a way to help us to understand what are the markets out there and who are the travelers that we are meeting with. So as you can see, in terms of the behavior for the travelers, most people do travel for family. And that's great, because we know that in Australia, we do have a large Asian community, case in point. And then of course you've got couple travel. So these are some of the good ones for us to be able to pay attention to whenever some of the properties that you may be able to tailor specifically for that type of market. And then of course, solo travelers, this is what Trip.com's all known for, because we have a very big FIT market in order to be able to cater to them for these sort of online bookings as well. And then of course, for Trip.com, we have a thing called TripBiz, and I'm sure some of you may have heard about it before. It's it's a corporate booking tool in order for us to take care of some of the big major companies in China, and so we are sending them to Australia as well as Oceania as well. And then of course friends, so visiting friends and relatives, that's another key markets that we are seeing because of the folks that's here already. And then the rest of it make up by booking for others, as well as some of the other experiences that they're doing here as well. And then I also wanted to share with you some of the actual behaviors that we are seeing or observing from using the platforms. So say, for example, we are seeing guests staying longer. And when it comes to longer, this is the global data that we're seeing across the board. So people wanting to feel and experience that market rather than just go in and out as a transit state. And so we're seeing the generations getting younger. And I think that some of the speakers was talking about it before, is that users are looking for more experiences, and that gap is going down a bit more. And I'll show you some of the data later on as well. And then finally is that we can see about 80% of the booking are made on an online platform. And this goes to show that the younger generation are tech savvy, as well as looking for self-service way to be able to access. And I've heard some of the presentations before is that having a website that allows you to be able to capture that market, not only on the website, but also on a mobile, which is really, really important. And so some stats I wanted to share for the last couple of months that we observe is that the lead time for the bookings is sitting at about 17 days in comparison to 2019, which is about 19 days. And then from an ADR perspective, and this is across the board for O properties, it's slightly up. It's about 352, and this is based on Sydney Metro, just so that can give you a bit of reference. And then when it comes to the length of stay, it's pretty steady, which is sitting at about 2.29 across the board. And so in terms of the generation that I was talking about before is that I mentioned about the younger generation. So you can see that the folks that's born after the 1990s and onwards, you can see that they're making a good comeback in terms of returns in the current year, which is 2024. And the reason I put some of the members there is because that a lot of these travelers are members, and so they are loyal to certain brands. and they're willing to spend when it comes to travel. So you can see the different tiers that we have on trip.com, that is, and we can recognize those triggers when it comes to them spending the money and then how much travel they're actually doing as well. And then one of the other thing I think will be really cool that we're looking forward to this year is that because we had the recent visits by the Premier, which is Li Qiang, from China, visiting in early June. And so with that, we're hoping to see a warmer and closer relationship and more collaborative when it comes to the inbound of China travel. And so that also instills confidence in the local markets, in the overseas market, for them to be able to visit us. And of course, with the visa situation, as we know, is that, and probably something worth explaining, is that we as Australia have not reciprocated the inbound into China. So in other words, is that if we go to China, we'll get a 14-day visa free. However, for local Chinese to come to Australia, they still need to apply for a visa. However, having said that, the good news is that there is now a 5-year visa application for any trade, tourism, and also businesses, that if you wanted to come to Australia, you can now attain a longer visa applications. So these are good signs that we are able to see as we step more and more into the rest of the year as well. Okay, so where do we go here? Now, one of the things I've been racking my brain about is thinking about what are some of the things that you guys already know. And so obviously that there is a lot of things that are repeating based on what some of the guests have already spoken about, and that is to stand out from the crowd. Because that travellers from China, they are looking for experiences, as I mentioned before, and they're looking for ways to be able to experience the local culture, as well as understanding what are some of the things that they can see differently. Have targeted promotions, and I think that these are some of the things that we need to think about. For example, we were talking about the October festival, which is coming up in a couple of months' time. And these are some of the key triggers in order for us to be able to bring the travellers in, because we know other countries that do it, to vying for that specific market. And there's a lot of talk about technology, especially social media, because younger travellers, as I mentioned before, is that they are on social, looking at their friends, looking at key influencers, as well as the social algorithms to be able to recommend them things on where they wanted to go next. So these are some of the points I think will be worth taking away. And then some of the other things I think will be good for us to be able to also consider will be, what are some of the big major national holidays? And so this year we know with October Festival, or the October Golden Week, is the 1st of October. So that doesn't change. However, it's the Spring Festival, which is the Chinese New Year, which is happening on the 29th of January. 2025, and that is the peak of the 2 travel dates. So do talk to some of your partners, and so obviously we're here as well, and see how you can maximize your exposure during these days as well. And then one of the other thing I mentioned about becoming a China friendly, and probably some of you guys here know what this is all about, is that how do you stand out from the crowd? And one of these things that we wanted to mention is to be more conscious about the type of travelers that you're getting. So when I say about China friendly, because these folks will travel based on what their preference are things like having a Chinese speaking staff in the hotel, having free Wi-Fi or a bottle of water. These things goes a long way, because that's the type of experience that they will have in China as they go. And then review score. I know Renee was talking about that quite prominently, and some of the other speakers was talking about the review score, because that when it comes to search, we do offer that algorithms in order for folks to have higher review score, but also that filter is being used quite a lot in order for people to be able to identify what are some of the properties that they'll be looking for. Just to give you an idea, if your review score is 4.5 or above, on our platform, what we're seeing, the conversion rate is 63% in comparison to anything below. So that's why having a great review score, a strong review score, is so important. And of course, that couple of months ago, we've run quite a few workshops with a company called UnionPay. Payment is always one of the key points that we know for a lot of travellers, because these are some of the things that will be quite relevant for them as well, especially when it comes to spending money in your property as well. And so with that, I'd like to thank you so much for your time and attention. And if you do have any questions afterwards, do come and say hello. So Trent and myself will be sticking around, and we'll also be back here tomorrow as well. So thank you.